for this third episode of Vampire Autodafe. Our Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle, we have taken a little jump in time. We'll address that momentarily. We are now in Chicago in 1929, as opposed to France in 1381, which we were before. So a lot of time has gone by, things have happened, things have changed, and we will see how our characters fare. My friends, welcome to the Roaring Twenties. Amidst the glittering skyscrapers and smoky speakeasies, Chicago is a city of contradictions. It is an era of dazzling excess and clandestine whispers, where the jazz-age rhythms pulse through the veins of a metropolis teetering on the edge of both glory and peril. The Great War has faded into memory, and in its wake, a cultural revolution is sweeping across the Windy City. Chicagoans revel in the exhilarating promise of the Prohibition era, with flappers dancing to Charleston in secret clubs and bootleggers crafting liquid gold behind closed doors. But beneath the shimmering surface of this glamorous facade lurks a darker world, where gangsters hold sway and corruption seeps into every corner of society. And yet still, deeper darkness lies in wait behind the mortal world. In this darkness, the monsters move, unseen, puppet masters of the mortal world, hungry mouths sucking the very lifeblood of the city, the very lifeblood of the inhabitants of the city. The kindred. All is not well in the city that belongs to Prince Alistair Campbell of Clan Bruja. Tonight is February 15th, 1929, and last night on St. Valentine's Day, there was a massacre. Several of the human gangsters that make up the ranks of the Irish mob controlled by the prince were executed. The obvious perpetrator of this crime is Federico Giovanni, lately of New York, who for some time now has been waging a quiet shadow war, his mobsters against the prince's mobsters for control of the city's extremely lucrative alcohol trade. This will reverberate in the darkness of the city's true halls of power for some time to come. It has, in fact, already begun. But before we see exactly what is to come of these actions of the St. Valentine's Day massacre, we find ourselves in the bowels of an old abandoned hotel. An hotel where one H. Holmes, several decades ago, murdered several people during the World Columbian Exposition in 1834. Deep in these bowels, shadows stir. You watch, Agravain, as the neonate Nosferatu, one whose name you probably don't even know or remember at this point, he's too young, too new, departs in a hurry, having brought to you information that the prince, Alistair Campbell, is summoning the Primogen Council. And the Nosferatu Primogen, the one who is the leader of your clan in this city, one H. Collingsford, has requested your presence later tonight at the gallery, which is the speakeasy that serves as Prince Campbell's court. As you digest this information and wonder why Collingsford would like to see you, since you are, well, one of the elders of the city, certainly one of the elders of Clan Nosferatu, but not necessarily generally involved in politics of the city. You start pondering this when one of your little friends, one of your little rats that scurries around and keeps an eye out for things, creeps in through a crack in one of the rooms and comes up and looks up at you, twitching its little nose, looking like it wants to say something to you. But before it can speak its mind, tell us a little bit, perhaps, what your surroundings look like and sort of what's happening here as you've woken up for the night upon hearing this information.
The hotel itself is pretty ran down at this point. It's very dark. It's got a musty smell of old death inside of it. most nights you can find Agravain just kind of haunting the halls. There is a room in particular that he tends to find himself more often than not. A room full of very beautiful things. He's not there now, though, because he's just spoken with someone, and that is his room, and no one's welcome in that room. Currently, he's kind of musing to himself on what the Primogen could possibly want from him. He doesn't have too much contact with the other Nosferatu in the city. He is friendly with them, but for the most part, he uses them for his own means, a source of information. But he's not a typical Nosferatu. He doesn't view them as family.
As you're taking all of this into consideration, the rat that you've been feeding with your blood for a while, and so it's kind of a super rat, comes up, runs up your robe all the way up to your shoulder, and squeaks and makes little faces at you. Of course, you don't speak rat, because who speaks rat? But you do know one thing. This is a rat whom you've set to a specific task. There's a human gentleman who's been coming around of late. A young man, very good looking, very well put together, beautiful waxed mustache, some sort of writer. He comes around with a piece of paper and a pen and takes notes and walks around the neighborhood and seems very focused on the hotel. You know that the locals have a bit of a spook story that supposedly some ghost haunts this hotel, one perhaps a ghost of one of the victims of the hotels, and this has in time attracted curious people, but that sort of faded away a little, except for this gentleman who finds himself again here somewhere tonight because your rat has come to see you, and this rat knows that if this gentleman comes, this rat is to come and see you. So you know that he's somewhere outside, and for the first time does something he's never done before. He knocks at the door upstairs.
I'm going to go upstairs, and I'm going to use my obfuscate powers, and I'm going to open the door, but nothing will be there waiting on the other side for him.
As soon as you open the door, he kind of takes a step back. Obviously, he wasn't expecting anyone to answer, and you see two things. Go ahead and let's make a roll. We don't make a lot of rolls here, so let's make a roll. Go ahead and give me a, we will call it a, roll your perception plus your empathy. And tell me how many 6s and up you get.
Six.
So you can't fail to see that, of course, there is surprise and fear on his face when you open the door and there's no one there. But for a brief moment, you also see something else. You see a very distinct glimmer of excitement. He approaches and he sort of looks around, and he's literally inches away from you as he's kind of, hello? Are you here?
I'm gonna slowly back away, but continue to watch him. I'm curious to see what he does.
You can see that he's kind of like working up his courage a little bit. You can definitely see that excitement now on his face, but there's also definitely some fear. Perhaps also a little bit of a haha, I knew it kind of feel to it. And eventually he sort of straightens his tie and licks his lips and, may I come in? Would it be terribly rude of me to come in?
Where's my rat right now? I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, your rat can be wherever you want. You could be on your shoulder, you could be scurrying about. Where would you like your rat to be?
I imagine he's still sitting on my shoulder.
He is sitting on your shoulder, as invisible as you are.
And I'm kind of gonna give him a little pet and wave him towards the man and kind of send him down to come out of the shadows towards this man's feet.
And as your rat scurries towards him, he's like, he backs up a little bit before seeing Rex. Huh. Well, you certainly aren't the one who opened the door. My God, you're ginormous. What have you been feeding on? He kind of stays away from the rat a little bit, but that movement has he was kind of in the doorway, and now like he's kind of scuttled to the side, so now his back is kind of like to the wall, and he's inside the house. And on the first floor, I would imagine you've left it really kind of falling apart and sort of scary looking and dangerous looking, so people don't sort of stay here. He kind of scuttles aside, goes, I appreciate you sending your familiar to welcome me, but I know you're here. I know someone's here. I felt you. I know you're here. I'm not looking to cause you any trouble. I'm merely. I'm just very curious. You see, I'm a writer. I am writing a book, the definitive book on Holmes and the events of this hotel. I'm quite fascinated. You see, as he's talking, he's kind of walking around and, not daring to go too far. And when the floor creaks too much, he kind of stops a little bit and starts to reassess. I don't mean you any harm, and if you would prefer, and he puts away his pencil and his paper, if you would prefer, I'll of course will not write anything without your approval. There is someone here, isn't there?
Can I kind of glean anything from this guy of who I think he might be if he's potentially lying about what he's
So
hearing?
your roll earlier was very good. So you definitely get the sense that he's not lying to you. He's definitely someone who is, he seems like the type who would do this, like write a book on something like this. You know that at this point in time, people are just now starting to kind of talk about serious crimes. People are always titillated by that. Like, this is the era where, gangsters, serial killers, things of that nature start becoming more common, and people being, up until now, up until the 20s, being very repressed still, find this very titillating, so very interesting. So you can totally imagine that this is someone who would want to do that. The other thing that you get from him is that for him, it's more than that. You can clearly tell that there's something very deep and very personal in him. Um, uh, a thirst or a hunger for something strange and macabre and, just dangerous. You can definitely tell that, I don't want to say this guy's aroused right now, but he's definitely loving every minute of this.
And would you say that people around this area definitely have noticed him coming around and looking at this place?
I would say that there's probably not a lot of people who live in the area. So
Okay.
certainly some people might have seen someone kind of hanging around. But this is not like a neighborhood that there isn't a neighborhood here. This is kind of like run down. People kind of avoid this place.
Okay.
So.
Agravain, while this man is walking around, is going to slam that front door shut.
He screams and jumps. Ah, ah, ah. Okay.
And in his chaos of moving, he's gonna get right up behind him and breathe icy cold air on his neck.
You are here. You are real. I knew it. Where are you? Are you an actual ghost? And he's kind of like reaching out, and you can tell that like he's really like both terrified and excited like at the same time. My name is Reed, Edwin Reed the Third. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm sorry if I'm disturbing you. Can you talk?
Agravain's gonna orientate himself on the opposite side that he was on him. What have you brought for me, Mr. Reed?
Looking around. Brought like an offering of sorts. Well, nothing. I have to admit, I'm actually kind of taken by surprise that you are actually. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't think you would talk to me so quickly. May I see you? Are you? Can you be visible? I don't know much about ghosts or things of that nature. Are you even a ghost? You must not be. You must be something else.
He's gonna hear a sigh in disappointment. And when he hears that sigh, he's gonna feel hands wrap around his body and his neck. Wow, Mr. Reed. It seems as though you've brought me dinner.
Please.
And he's going to sink his fangs into Mr. Reed.
Let's do something. First of all, give me roll 3d. You don't have 3d6, so roll 2d10s and add it up just to see like if you're like super hungry or if like you'll be able to control yourself. Unless you don't want to control yourself, it's a different story. But yeah, give me 2d10s just to see how much blood you actually have right now.
12.
Okay, so with 12 you can totally be in control. Like you would certainly, with 12 you would start thinking about feeding normally in the next night or two, but right now like you could still, so totally up to you how you do it. You sink your fangs into him, and it doesn't take long for that usual kind of euphoria to sort of take over him. And this happens unless you purposefully make your embrace painful. What would Agravain do?
I feel like Agravain would not allow him to feel euphoria from his bite. He would want him to feel pain. And
as your fangs dig into him and you make sure to give him as much pain as possible, he, instead of reacting with that euphoria that you expect, he reacts with a kind of different euphoria where at first there's definitely like that kind of pain, and then eventually he kind of leans into it, and you can tell by the look on his face that he actually likes this better than if it was the other thing.
Mr. Reed. I imagine Agravain would weaken him pretty drastically before he pulls him away. And at this point, he's dropping the shadows. And he's going to hold Mr. Reed out from him and look him in the eyes. Is this what you were expecting, Mr. Reed? And as he says that, he's slowly pulling away his mask.
You see him; he's very weak. You've taken 3 blood points taken from him would basically kill him. So we'll say like you left him with 1 or so. He's very pale, very drawn, kind of having difficulty now, start looking up. But as you reveal your face, he looks up and he says, "Not what I expected." And his hand reaches out slowly and touches your face. "You're even
Agravain. Oh,
more
sorry, go on.
beautiful." He just says, "You're even more beautiful than I thought." And his hand just kind of caresses your cheek and then slowly drops limp.
Agravain looks disgusted by what he's hearing from this man. So disgusted that he doesn't even desire to finish him off from feeding. He simply takes his hand and snaps his neck and lets him fall to the floor.
Go ahead and give me, if you will, a conscience roll. So you're going to roll a number of dice equal to your conscience. And your conscience is pretty low, so your target's going to be pretty low. We're going to say like 3 is your target.
My conscience is 3 is my target to hit on the dice?
Yeah.
Okay, that's 2 successes then.
Okay. So it doesn't sink you deeper into the hole of beastdom. You snap his neck, and there is almost a look of contentment on his face.
I'm going to casually step over the body and see myself to my room.
We will revisit you momentarily because I have a feeling that the next person I'm about to talk to may want to come and speak with you. Anton. Where does Anton live?
Anton spends majority of the time he's resting. In a small apartment. Modest. Nice, but not very large.
You woke up tonight, the sound of sirens, police sirens, echoing a bit more than usual. Clearly something's happened, something's gone on. Figure you probably... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can I tell which way they're coming from or where they're headed?
Sort of all over the place. You can kind of figure that they're probably mostly putting a show of force on, just sort of something's happened and they're reminding the public that they're there, kind of thing. Like, but if it has to do with crime, you're thinking you're probably going to want to need, you're probably going to need to know what's happened because you are rather enmeshed.
Yeah. Hearing all the sirens kind of shake his sleep off and take a walk down the street. I think we need to go see our lovely leader.
Well, in fact, as you open the front door, there is a man sitting on your stoop. You recognize him. He's a black man who looks to be in his mid-40s, perhaps. He wears a little pork pie hat kind of cocked to one side, nondescript leather jacket. Looks kind of like, any other laborer you would see sort of walking around during the day, but you know that this man is not just another laborer. This is Clark Towns. Clark Towns is the leader. Not the leader, sorry. Clark Towns is one of the leaders, but one of the main points of contact you have with the Boundary Clan, the group of anarchs that you know have been opposing or being a pain in the ass of both the Prince and the Giovanni in this Prohibition War. I see you're not much of an early riser.
No, I prefer to have my fun in the dark.
We need to talk.
And Anton just kind of looks to the left and the right, looks to see if he sees anybody looking at him.
A couple of people. I would assume you live in a very kind of blue-collar sort of neighborhood, and this late at night, people are already in bed because they got to go to bed early in the morning. So just a few lights on here and there in some of the apartments in the area.
Waiting on you.
Did you hear about what happened last night?
I believe you could say I heard about it.
They damn shot 7 of your boss's men. This thing is going to get ugly. Look, you have got to go and talk to Blake, and you have got to tell him that we had nothing to do with this. We were not involved. I know the way they are. They're going to use this as an excuse to roll up every Tom, Dick, and Harry that ever stood up to them. You have to tell them we were not part of this. And in fact, I am here to tell you that we will stand with you against them damn New Yorkers.
Offering an allegiance.
We're offering to help do the dirty work for you. We know you're going to be going apeshit on these guys, and look, there's not a lot of us, but you know we got a little bit of weight, and, well, between us and them, between us and you guys, there ain't a hell of a lot of pie left for anybody else. We just want to protect what's ours, and maybe show good faith to you and yours. Maybe we can go back to business the way it was. You guys running the big thing, us getting the crumbs, and everybody being happy.
I can run the information by, but who knows what tomorrow brings?
I feel you. But at least be a step in the right direction if you could do this for us. Look, I know you walk a tight line between them and us, and, well, we appreciate everything you've done for us in the past, and you know your secret is safe with us. We cool?
Yes. So long as my secret remains my secret to tell to who I wish.
Hey, man, your can of porks and beans is your can of porks and beans, you know? Look, I gotta go. There's tons of stuff going on, but the other thing is this. That shipment we got stashed, I don't know where you put it. You said you had a good place to hide it. We're thinking maybe you can find it and you can deliver it to your boss. And you can tell him it's a peace offering from the Boundary Clan.
I know it's safe. I'll see it gets to him. We'll see what he thinks.
I appreciate it. Well, you know where to reach me if you got anything else going on.
Absolutely.
It's a fucking mess. We're going to be picking the pieces of this one up for fucking years to come. Just hope it doesn't turn to old bloodbath. Sorry.
As he says that, Anton's face is going to slightly curl into a small smile. He's relishing the thought of everything going crazy.
You look like you're having a little bit too much fun there, man. You might want to watch that. Some people might get the wrong idea.
Well, you can have whatever idea you like. I'm going to have my fun.
Me, I ain't got no ideas, man. I don't get paid enough to have no ideas. I don't want no ideas. Ideas are a dangerous thing, man. All right, I'm out of here, but if you know I need anything, you reach me and you get that message across, and we'll continue being good.
We'll see how this goes.
I want to get a bite. You're looking a little bit peckish there. And with that, he
Thanks.
doffs his hat to you and heads on off.
Anton's going to kind of follow him down, not quickly, just kind of maybe a flight or two behind on the stairs. Once he gets to the bottom, he's going to start heading towards where his shipments and items that get lost always end up.
All right. We will revisit this momentarily somewhere else, downtown Chicago, on the balcony of a beautiful hotel. We see a beautiful woman taken in the air, overlooking the bright lights of the city. From up here, it looks like a beautiful little jewel glinting in the dark. Of course, someone like Fleur knows exactly what sort of horrors lie in there. Tell us a little bit about Fleur, Myriad.
Fleur stands on the balcony. She's wrapped in a long fur coat as the winter wind sort of whips at her now short blonde hair, a recent change in the past few years. And she has some sort of flyer advertisement gripped in her hands, and she's looking down at it instead of over on the city skyline, sort of carefully tracing over the features of the woman on the advertisement with her thumb, just sort of wistfully, longingly, maybe regretfully.
As you do, you hear a voice coming through from the other side of the curtain to the room that you were occupying in this hotel, and the voice says, you're going to end up putting a hole in that thing, Mum, if you continue rubbing it that way.
Flora will sort of, upon realizing that she's being watched, just sort of crinkle the paper closed, sort of shove it into like one of her pockets in her coat, and sort of turn around and smile. Not sure what you mean. It's nothing.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little hungry. Are we going out tonight?
Yeah, we can go out. We got to make sure that we don't obviously feed on the hotel grounds.
The curtains part and your niece comes to join you. Can you give us a little description of your niece?
She is what appears to be a young woman. She looks similar to Fleur, especially Fleur from years and years past. Dark hair, petite, dark eyes, very dark eyes. So it's odd for Fleur because it is almost like looking in the mirror, looking into what might have been while looking at Elodie.
Where will we go then? And I'm sorry. Look, Mum, if you want to go and talk to her, you should go and talk to her. I know it can't be easy. It's been a very long time, but sometimes time means nothing to some people. you can get right back with them as if you never left. I mean, when you came and found me in Hungary, it had been almost 100 years since I'd seen you last, but there you were, a lovely Auntie Flora, and it was like you'd always been there. I'm sure she would feel the same. Who wouldn't be happy seeing you again?
Flora's gonna sort of breathe out a laugh, and time changes people, you know? Time matters to some. I'm not the same person I used to be. I'm sure she's not either.
Maybe,
And
but
I don't know if she would like the person that I've become.
why wouldn't she? What's so terrible
I don't
about you?
know. I don't know if our connection was because of, and Floor will sort of trail off, not wanting to say the name aloud, almost like it's like the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm kind of afraid that this is one-sided. Maybe she hasn't thought about me in 500 years. Maybe I'm the one holding on to the past and I should just let it go.
Maybe, but how many more 100 years do you think you can go without knowing?
Floor is going to approach Elodie and sort of pat her on the cheek and smile at her. You know, sometimes I think that you're the older one here with your wisdom. And Floor's going to sort of go back into the room. What do you fancy we go to a club tonight?
Can we? Isn't it illegal here? I
Well-
thought there was like some what did you call it? Some premonition or what? That they can't have booze, and you know that the humans don't like.
Oh, we don't. Meant the club run by ours.
Oh. That sounds delightful.
We need to be careful. This is in New York. We don't know the situation here quite as well.
Well, I know someone who could tell us what the situation is.
Blair's gonna sort of roll her eyes playfully, and sort of, she's gonna like go onto, sort of lay onto the bed in the middle of the room, and on the bed there are a bunch of different sketches, sort of a culmination of probably the sketches she's done on their travel from New York to Chicago. There's a lot of sketches of sort of like little still lifes of like Elodie, you know, on a train, in a cab. There's some sketches of Floor herself, some sketches just random passerbys, sketches of kindreds and mortals alike. There's a few sketches of Odette. And then there's also a sketch of a man shrouded in black with the eyes, the only visible part of him, kind of smeared out.
As you look over at these portraits, Elodie will come up next to you, twirling her hair. You never did tell me who that one was. It's a little disturbing.
Pray we never meet him. He's cruel.
Well, it's such a beautiful night outside. I can't see how such a beautiful night could possibly hold someone so villainous looking.
You never know what lurks in the dark.
Well, then we shall stay in the light. And she grabs you and she sort of pulls you over and she turns up some of the lights in the house and in the room. And as the light sort of flares out, she starts dancing around with you. And she's like, "Will we be able to dance tonight at the club where we're going?" And she's just sort of twirling around with you.
Fleur's going to sort of laugh and, if not, we'll make our own music and dance to ourselves.
What shall we wear?
I mean, we look good in anything, don't we? I think we should wear our best.
Very true.
Never know who we'll meet.
It's a night full of possibilities. Old friends? New friends? Just, she points at that disturbing picture. Just not that, whatever that is.
Fleur will sort of go over and turn it down, turn it like upside down so the face isn't showing anymore. And she will kind of go into, I imagine that they've sort of moved in essentially to this hotel room. You know, when you unpack, you usually have things just out of a suitcase, but Fleur and Elodie have, they've hung their clothes, put their clothes in the dressers. So yeah, Fleur's going to go in and sort of pick out Elodie's outfit and sort of kind of toss it at her before picking her own.
Oh, can I wear that long string of pearl of yours, the one that you got in Florence?
Of course.
You know the one? Oh, yes.
And I'll go and dig through my jewelry box. Anything you want. You need only ask.
As you get ready to go out into the night den, where will you be heading?
Probably, I imagine that Penelope has told us of a few good haunts, places where it's more or less safe for us to hunt. The
place that would be safest, there is an area in what's called the Golden Mile district where there is sort of that area is kind of small, but anyone who's recognized by the prince but doesn't live in town, doesn't have their own hunting grounds, can hunt there within certain, to a certain extent. But that's where she would have told you like that you can go as far as getting, a bite to eat, basically.
A little nibble.
And from there on end, you might consider going to a place called the Gallery, which is you were told an Elysium, so it's a place where that is safe haven for kindred. No one's allowed to commit violence. No one's allowed to use their discipline, so on and so forth. And it's kind of a speakeasy kind of place with basically no humans around. So it's Masquerade safe.
Yes, I think we would go hunting and then we would go to the Gallery. Sort of, Fleur doesn't want to make waves in any sort of way, but she does want like the know-how about the place. And what better way to do that than to schmooze with the locals?
Schmooze with the locals. Very well. You are on your way to some schmoozing. We'll talk about your feeding in just a little moment. But first, somewhere across the city, a woman whose face was very recently on a little flyer advertising palms read, futures told, cards laid out in patterns that offer some significance to people who can read them. Tell me, Odette, where do you live? How do you live? What are you doing at this particular moment in time?
Odette lives in her own apartment. I see her living a little bit better than modestly. She doesn't really need much. It's one bedroom, but it is amongst artists and thespians and maybe even some bohemians. And she lives a little bit eccentrically, very much a party girl type lifestyle. Red silk over lamps to sort of give ambiance, and she takes appointments for her fortunes to be told, and she makes a pretty decent living off of this, amongst other things.
And do you have any appointments tonight, or
she's reading palms tonight. I would imagine she's a gaggle of girls, sort of very excitingly getting their palms read, and Odette's being very soft and tender with them and giving light touches as she runs her hands over the lines in their palms and cooing at how long they have in this life and what love will be coming towards them.
They seem to be very happy with the reading that you've given them. They came here very nervous. They'd heard about some friends of theirs who had come to see you and had a wonderful reading. And of course, they want to know about boys and whether they will get married and whether their husbands will be rich and whether the usual stuff. And you sort of take good care of them. And after a little while, you finish the reading. They pay you each their 15 cents. One of them even throws in an extra nickel as a tip for you. And they file out of the door. And as they do, you see waiting down the hall a man very well dressed. Obviously a man of means, man of good taste. Older gentleman a little bit, holding his hat in his hand, and as the girls kind of run out, he gives them a good evening to you, young ladies. And they sort of file past him. And then he looks up at you and goes, do you have room for an impromptu appointment?
She very playfully kind of bats her lashes at him and sort of shrugs and says, oh, I always have openings for you. And she'll, escort him in.
He'll walk in, just setting up his mustache, and he seems, as always, you know that he is a man of means, as I said, one of the more well-to-do and sort of powerful bankers in the city. Definitely someone who should not be nervous in the presence of a woman, but he always seems to be just a little nervous with you, and always very careful to be very proper and all that. And can you tell us a little bit about this man and how you met him?
This is somebody who Odette would consider a gracious benefactor. Years ago, she met him and his wife, and did some readings for them. Unfortunately, she passed, and since then he has come to visit with her on the grounds of communicating with his lost wife.
And what's come of that? Have you ever led him on? What have you been sort of telling him as far as the communications go with his dead wife?
There's a little bit of leading on going on. She, gives him peace and solace that she is in a good place and she's not suffering and that she's with God, of course. Mm-hmm. And Odette still being a Catholic and a staunch one at that, and, gives a sign of the cross during this and encourages these thoughts with him.
I hope it's not too forward of me to show up unannounced like this. I do have an ulterior motive in mind. Would it be okay if I sat down?
She sort of waves him to sit at the well-decorated table that she has sort of in the center of the apartment, and she kind of cants her head to the side and says, do you want wine? Tea? coffee?
Oh, yes. I would love someone if you if you have some. I can get it if you want. Would you like me to? And he starts getting up again, and he's been in your apartment, so he kind of was a little bit in the kitchen.
She'll nod and sort of sit down at the table and let him tend to her.
He'll go out and he'll start. You'll hear him putzing around, finding some glasses, and washing them again, and getting the ball of wine. He's like, "Oh, yes, this is one of the ones that sommelier recommended to us the other day when we were at the oyster bar, right? That was a very good one." And he
I
starts
believe
opening.
so.
Um, uh, Odette, and he's talking to you kind of from the kitchen, and you kind of get the feeling that maybe he's using the fact that he doesn't have to, sort of look you in the eyes. That's giving him a little bit of courage. And he's like, "Dear Odette, I, I am terribly sorry. I must admit that I do, in fact, have well, quite the ulterior motive in coming to you like this tonight. Uh, hold on." And he comes into the room, and he's got like a little. He took one of your like tea towels, and he's got it wrapped over his arm, and he's got the two glasses and the bottle of wine, and he sets it down and he starts filling up the glasses. Well, first of all, I was wondering if you perhaps would like to go out tonight. Perhaps it's been a while since I'm afraid you've really gone out and experienced the town. It feels like you're always in here working, and well, I do hate to see such a beautiful young woman such as yourself stuck in here. And don't get me wrong, this is a very wonderful apartment, perhaps a little bit bohemian, but certainly a very nice apartment nonetheless. And um, well, I would love the opportunity if you would allow me, Miss Odette, to take you out tonight. Perhaps some dancing or simply a quiet walk in the park, if you prefer. But would that would that be okay with you?
She eats this up. She loves how nervous he is, and I think she relishes in that. And she sort of leans up with her hand in her palm, or head in her palm, and sort of looks up at the ceiling and maybe stays on one spot for a little too long before eventually looking at him and say, "Dancing? You wish to take me dancing?" And she wants to really rub his nose in it, but she's agreeing more or less.
Well, well, there was a time I could cut a mean rug. I'm not the the spry young man I used to be, but I would wager that perhaps aside from the Charleston, I might still be able to pull a few moves up there on the dance floor. Certainly, keeping up with you, I'm sure, would be very difficult, but I wanted to give it the old college try.
You can take me dancing.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, I that's very wonderful to hear. Thank you. And he, will sort of drain his glass, to give himself a little bit of that courage. Um, there is something else I wanted to ask you, if I may, and well, I simply don't think I can wait. Um, I'm sorry. May I take your hand? May I take your hand, Miss Odette?
She sort of anxiously gives her hand over, and for context, she is wearing gloves.
He takes your hand. He's like, "You've been such a comfort to me, Miss Odette. Ever since the tragedy, and well, I dare say that if it wasn't for you and your kindness and well, your piety and well, gosh darn it, just everything about you is just so wholesome and wonderful, and it's brought me great sanctuary in these trying times. And well, Miss Odette, I've thought about this long and hard, and well, I'm sure that my Martha, if the roles were reversed, would be wanting to do something similar, and I would encourage you to do so, because there's nothing worse than growing old alone. You are very young still, so this may not be something that you understand quite yet, but growing old it's very scary. To be alone for 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 years. It's the scariest thing there is. And, well, Miss Odette, I don't think I could do that, and I don't think I could do, well, any better, really, than to have you on my side for that time. And so I was hoping you would consider, Miss Odette. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a little box. And he opens it up very slowly. I understand this may be very sudden, and I understand that there would have to be some time, and I would be very happy to officially and court you in the proper way if you give me the go ahead. And, well, perhaps in a year's time or something we could make sure that we don't have to grow old alone.
I have a question, Bleak.
Yes.
How big's the rock? Is
It
significant?
is massive, it is old, and it is tasteful.
But it's massive.
Oh yeah, it's like definitely one of the
Huge
biggest
diamond.
ones you've ever seen. You're thinking he's probably a professional with a tool that big.
Yep. Odette sort of like feigns a flutter. Mon chéri? Oh, and I imagine Odette is very French with him and very like.
Oh, and he loves that.
French.
He loves that. Oh yeah, he loves it. He doesn't speak a lick of French, but he loves it.
She like whispers like a grocery list to him in French, and like he has no idea. And
You can see the sweat start to like just bead right at his hairline there, and you can tell the man's having emotions.
And immediately she's gonna stick her hand out and say, "I would be delighted."
For a second, you think he's maybe gonna have a heart attack, like he's just like, and then with sort of trembling hands, he takes the ring out and it's like, Miss Odette, it is like an angel has come to visit me, and has decided to stay with me. It is the greatest gift God could ever give a poor sinner like myself. And he slides the ring up on your finger.
As she leans in and she very much is admiring this ring and glances up at him and says, "My dear, we're all sinners and we're all on our way to redemption. And this is just one step there."
You have a way of speaking and words to say that do soothe an old man's heart. What do you say? Shall we go out and celebrate then? Champagne!
Blowing. And she'll get up and sort of link herself close and, snug up close to him. And
like,
she's...
You can feel him trembling, like you've never like gotten this physical with him, and he's like, his skin is trembling, like you feel like his skeleton's gonna just pop out of it at some point. Which, being one of my games might actually happen. You never know.
That's outstanding. And she'll sort of do her normal turning up the lights, and she doesn't waste power, of course.
Mm-hmm.
She's a good girl. And draws him out into the hall. And as she does this, she leans up to kiss him on the cheek, a very chaste, simple kiss.
As you do that, you hear from down the hall a male voice that says, "I'm sorry, am I disturbing?"
Odette looks.
You look over, and standing there down the hall, staring at you with a bit of a smile on his face, you recognize Professor Timothy Halling. Professor Halling, who looks exactly like a college professor. He's got the right haircut with the little comb over, and he's got the little cardigan, with the bow tie, and he's got the tweed jacket with the leather vest, and you guys got a pipe and a pen sticking out of his pouch, and he's got the corduroy pants and the whole 9 yards, is the Malkavian primogen of the city, one of the oldest and most powerful vampires in Chicago. Going out to lunch, are you?
I'm newly engaged. And she immediately holds out her hand with the ring.
He comes over. Marvelous. Very nice. Who with? This young man here. And he looks up to be about 30. And he's like, I'm Henry. Professor Hollingsworth. How are you doing? And they shake hands. How do you know Odette? I'm her uncle. Oh, you never told me you had an uncle in the city?
He doesn't visit often. And she looks very nervous. Very nervous.
Yes, she's right. I'm afraid my duties at the university keep me very busy, and I'm also a lecturer at Harvard and a couple other places. So I'm always traveling around. And well, I'm sorry. I was in town tonight and just thought I would drop into my favorite niece and say hello. But it seems to me you are already otherwise engaged. Oh, that's a good one, sir. Yes, very much.
God.
Well,
Damn it, Bleak.
give me a second. Sorry. He says, well, I don't want to trouble you any further. Perhaps, Odette, we might get together a little later. At your earliest convenience, at the Elysium. When you can, is perhaps just a little chat, catch up, and talk about recent events and so on and so forth, if that's okay with you.
Odette sort of visibly relaxes, seeing that they've chummed it up and nothing has been told that's obvious, because her now new fiance has no idea she's a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And she sort of nods slowly and says, yes, I can certainly see that arranged after this evening.
Excellent.
Is celebrated. Uh-huh.
He looks over at your husband-to-be and he's like, you look very fit. And with that, he turns around and he leaves. And that's weird not only because it's weird, but also because he's known to, in his time, have been very interested in vivisections and things of that nature. And so he's a little, he's a very old Malkavian, so he's a little strange. Yeah. But he leaves, and Henry, your to-be, is like, very interesting fellow, your uncle. What is he a professor of?
Odette's sweating. If she could sweat. He is they dig up dinosaur bones, a paleontology, I believe it is.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh. Well, no wonder he found me interesting then, if he's into old things.
Oh, you have no idea, my dear.
Well, shall we then? Champagne awaits. And he offers you. And you can tell that now that, like, he's asked this, and he's changing a little bit. Like, he's like,
Little strut.
Yeah, he's starting to take ownership a little bit more. But, you get the feeling he feels like, oh, he's won,
Yeah. Odette will sort of very coyly sort of slink in next to him and take his arm and let him whisk her away into the night.
As you head off into this little night, Mornion, you arrive at the old hotel, the one that was the site of some murders some years ago. Great move by your friend Agravain to have taken this over. The locals are so afraid of it that they don't come snooping around, so it makes it an ideal place to hide things. As you approach the house, you notice very quickly that the door was ajar and then it slammed shuts very, very, very abruptly.
Anton's gonna kind of look up quizzically. That's odd. He's not. He has no worry at all that really anything is going wrong, I guess. But he will slowly kind of make his way up to where he heard the door slam.
As you go up the creaking stairways that lead to the front door, you see a number of rats sitting on the front porch, kind of giving you the eyeball.
Good evening.
One of them squeaks.
He's gonna kind of look at him for a moment and then kind of stand by the door, and he just kind of wants to see what he hears.
You listen, you can clearly hear voices inside. You can't quite make out what they're saying. They're talking kind of in hushed tones. And then you hear nothing for a while, and then kind of a strangled cry, and then a very loud snap and something heavy falling to the floor.
Like a good night.
Party at Agravain's. Bring out your dead.
I would know if this is a door that's normally kept locked.
Yeah, that's not normally like, usually when you come here, you come in through like one of the doors in the back parking lot kind of deal.
I would try the door.
It opens. You see lying on the floor a man who's not moving. You can't see Agravain anywhere, but there's a body there. You sniff. Scent of blood's in the air. Certainly hasn't been dead long. There seems to be a wound on his neck that's bleeding, but there's not a lot of blood coming out of it.
And just kind of look around for a moment.
Agravain, you are fully aware. You felt that a presence, someone, a kindred, was coming up the door, and just after you finished killing this man, you went into the shadows again, and you are there now seeing Anton walking through the lobby of this hotel where you live.
As soon as I see that it's Anton, I instantly drop the shadows and step towards you.
Good
Anton.
evening.
I assume you've come to check on your goods.
Amongst other things.
The news has caught you.
I figured if anybody knew things, it was you.
You know me well by now.
Been a while?
Seems as though the prince is calling us into meeting tonight.
You, Anton, have not been called.
Interesting.
You've not heard anything of this?
The first I've heard of it.
Interesting. I wonder what he wants. My Primogen has asked to speak with me as well. Seems as though there's a great unsettling in the city right now. Lots of scurrying little rats.
You're gonna watch as Anton just kind of looks at you for a moment, and a smirk comes across his face. Well, a little excitement always does make for a better night.
Yeah, seems as though I've given some luck this evening. And he kicks the body at his feet. Delivery.
Oh,
It's always nice when dinner comes to you.
does someone take out the fun of the hunt?
Speaking of
Good
which,
count.
give me a 2d10s, Mornian. See how much blood you have.
Uh, 13.
Okay, same thing. So, you're not dying for it. It smells good. Still a little bit of that, coppery smell in the air. There's probably like a good pint or two left in the body if you felt peckish. I mean, Agravain has already put his lips and drunk from that glass, but
Can I finish it off for you?
Help yourself.
And Anton will kind of bend down to one knee, grab the body by the back of the neck, and pull it up to his lips. No need for it to go to waste.
it's nice. It's young vintage but spicy. You get a point out of it, and the corpse is completely drained now.
I imagine while Anton's doing this, Agravain is standing over top, just kind of watching him a little too closely.
Anton will notice, but he won't make it a point to make it that he's noticed. Just kind of stands up and looks. I had a visit from the Boundary Clan.
Oh,
They
I
want
knew
me.
you didn't come here just for my leftovers.
Also, your charming personality. Appears they had nothing to do with last night's little foray, and they want to donate some goods to show it.
Interesting. How does this make you feel, Anton?
I'm a man of two very distinct thoughts right now. Could get a little better graces by giving them what they lost and moving along with the prince. Or we could really spice things up. Who's to say we found this and we didn't take it while it was being delivered as payment for a job well done?
I will say that there's enough stuff there that, one, for the Boundary Clan to give it to the prince is a sizable gift. Like, this is going to set their operations back, which tells you how afraid they are that the prince is going to roll them up in the same, ball as the Giovannis. To the prince, it would be less of a, heavy duty thing, but it's certainly worth a good piece. There's like a good half a year's worth of work there. There's whiskey and all sorts of stuff in there. probably also some weapons and ammunition, things of that nature. Some art, maybe whatever, anything that he kind of stole and whatnot. But it would be mostly booze, and a lot of it.
We have the opportunity to start a conflict the likes this city has never really seen.
Well, sounds like you know your answer.
Hmm.
So what will you two do at this juncture?
I think we would, Anton would begin going and readying things for movement.
I'm assuming you're going to want to hide that you're doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay. So how about, let's see what you got. What you got for me? Retainers and contacts. Creeps got also retainers, contacts, influence. So why don't you go ahead, the two of you, and we'll get a couple of general rolls just to sort of see how good you are at kind of hiding things. Right now, let's do manipulation, and then I'll let you choose to do stealth or streetwise or subterfuge, whichever one kind of excites you.
Are we both rolling?
Yeah, both of you roll, and we'll add up your successes.
Okay.
Anything 5 or higher?
No, it's going to be a bit harder than that because obviously everyone's really on high. Right now, you're going to need trucks, you're going to need guys, you're going to need stuff, right? So you're not going to get all that tonight, but you're going to start organizing it. And if you don't want the prince and the boundary clan to know, and everyone's kind of on high alert, it's going to be hard. So I'm going to say it's like 7s and higher. But we'll add up your successes for the two of you.
I got 3 successes.
I got 5.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So I will say that in the next hour or so, you're able to calling on some contacts that are kind of more fringe and not necessarily tied to the prince or to the boundary clan or to the sheriff, who's also part of the kind of mob aspect, the organized crime aspect, and cops. You managed to secure some transport, some guys who are going to be able to sort of come and get that. And obviously you're going to have that done during the day because, if you're trying to hide shit from vampires, the best place to hide it in the middle of the fucking sunshine. So you will organize that for tomorrow. You both have ghouls or people that you trust that will sort of come and handle that. I would also assume, Creep, that Aggravain as like sort of a way for people to come and access that doesn't give them access to the rest of the house. And you're smart about all this. So we'll say that in the next hour or so, you're kind of working at that and making that happen. And during the day, either tomorrow or the day after, it's going to sort of get taken care of. You just have to decide what you want to do with it, where you want to send it. Do you want to, and so on and so forth. By the time this is done, definitely you, Creep, will feel that it's probably time to start heading out to the gallery to kind of see what's happening, because if the prince and the primage have been meeting, they'll be kind of finishing up, and whatever comes out of it, you probably don't want to miss. And once you get there or sort of on the way there, you can probably kind of have a bit of a discussion to figure out what you want to do with all this good stuff that you've got. So we'll say that you head on out there. If there's anything else you want to do before you go there, think on it. We're going to do one more short thing, then we're going to take a break. So think on it, and when we come back from the break, I'll ask you again, what do you want to do before you head off to sort of the gallery and all that, but I'll give you some time to sort of think on it there and work it out. Meanwhile, Fleur and I almost said Odile, but it's Elodie. Fleur and Elodie, you have gone to that sort of area that's open for feeding. So go ahead, and how do you go about feeding? So there's the two of you. There's you. There's Elodie, who looks like a very nice, sort of innocent young woman. How would you go? Just kind of describe to me how you would go about trying to get your hunt on, and then we'll do a little roll and see how it goes.
Fleur knows that she is extremely beautiful, and she also knows that men are stupid.
Yeah.
So she would lure men into, like, normally she would lure them to her hotel, but given she's not allowed to feed there, she would sort of lure them to some back alley, some abandoned house, maybe nearby an abandoned building, something, just for the privacy, because she still to this day is very the only other person that has seen her feed is Elodie. So
very
yeah, she would use her
private.
charms and her beauty. Yeah.
Okay, do you kill or do you just...
No. I think you could probably count on one hand the amount of mortals she's actually killed.
Okay. You do have
most of them have been by accident.
You do have level 3 dominate, so you can erase from mortal mind. So I will say this: go ahead and give me a manipulation, and we can say performance, perhaps, or performance might be good. Roll, and I will say you can add, for Elodie helping you, you can add 3 dice to that. And you'll be looking for, we'll say 5s. Like, I think it should be fairly easy.
Seven successes.
All right, so no problem at all. You easily lure someone, a man who's perhaps coming home from the bar, not completely intoxicated. You wouldn't want to drink the blood, but someone who's had like 1 or 2 maybe on the way home from work. So he's a little bit looser, kind of, right? He sees you and he's like, "Hey, doll," and you start talking to him, and then you eventually lure him out back. And
Fleur does the whole like giggle and sort of like, takes advantage of the fact he's a little tipsy and like sort of guides him to some dark corner somewhere.
You will manage without too much trouble to feed, and Elodie will get some also. And using your forgetful mind power, you will erase his mind, and you will sort of place him somewhere where he's safe and can kind of sleep it off for a little while. And as you're kind of fixing yourself up, making sure there's no blood on your clothes, and Elodie's saying, what was that strange taste in there? It tasted kind of, I don't know, strange but good. And she's talking about the alcohol that was in his blood.
Oh, that's liquor, dear. It's
no wonder they like it so much. I only had a bit of wine back in Hungary, and it was terrible. Nothing like this. As you're kind of fixing yourself and starting to step out of the alley, you hear a man say, "The address I was given was right around here. It should be. Maybe we're on the wrong block. Do you? I'm afraid we're lost, dear Odette. Perhaps around the corner here, maybe. There should be an entrance." Odette, you've been walking with Henry now for about 30 minutes, just walking around the streets here, looking for this club that he wants to take you to. He's got the address written down. You're starting to think that either he got sold a bill of goods, or like there's just nowhere. It's mostly like living quarters and things of that nature. You do hear music playing somewhere far off. It's possible that there's kind of a secret entrance down an alley or something, but he's kind of completely lost. That's so frightful. I'm very sorry, Odette. I'm making a mess of it. You do forgive me, don't you?
Fleur she freezes for a second and thinks to herself, surely this is not the same Odette. And will very slowly, almost as if she doesn't want to look, will look in that direction.
What's Odette doing or saying? Yeah.
Oh, before you even look, you hear Odette's oh so familiar, sort of whimsical, far off voice, and she sort of looks around and is mostly looking up at the buildings and the lights than she really is wherever Henry has taken her. And she says, "Oh, surely 'tis around here somewhere, my dear. That's truly this evening is so nice with just you."
You didn't happen to bring your tarot with you so you could divine the way.
No, my dear, that just is not quite it. And but she does, I mean, to sort of save him from this embarrassment, she sort of closes any further distance between them, and she's simpering up to him and sort of cooing along and almost playing this damsel in distress and letting him be the big strong man who's leading her to safety.
And next to you, Fleur, you hear Elodie go, "Holy suffering succotash. Is that?"
One and the same. Fleur is mighty uncomfortable right now.
Do I see them?
Well, I was just going to say, go ahead, Odette, and give me a perception plus empathy roll.
Okay. This is my first time actually rolling?
Yeah, so you roll a number of d10s equal to your perception plus your empathy skill, if you have any.
Okay, I have 5 in that, and then
5
perception.
Oh, yeah,
and
so
then 4 in perception, so 9d10.
Yep, and you do have auspex coming out of your tuchus. You got 5 auspex, so go ahead and give me the roll just for...
Okay, rolling.
You're going to be looking, I'm going to say, for 6s.
Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 successes, so 4 of them are more than 6.
You are sort of looking around. You tell your man here, it's so nice just being here with you. And then you hear something you haven't heard in a while. You hear in your head Aveline's voice, which you haven't. There was a while there that you would hear her fairly regularly after you diablerized her, but it kind of went away with time, and kind of fell back to the point where maybe you thought you wouldn't hear it again, but there it is, clear as sunshine would be in the middle of the night. And you hear, "The whore has come back for you." And as you hear that, you kind of turn instinctively towards the sound where the voice is coming from in your head. And right there across the street, staring at you from the mouth of an alley. And the second the two of you look at each other, there is this instant, powerful, undescribable emotion link that just sort of crashes into each other, and you stare at each other across the street. And the hundreds of years that have passed since you last saw each other, just before Odette was taken through the shadows by Santiago, and Fleur and her friends and the rest of them had to escape this crumbling castle after you had committed diablerie upon Fleur's sire, just crumble and melt away.
Odette, still staring directly at Fleur, says to Henry, "My dear, I believe that we are exactly where we are meant to be. God has spoken." And she lets go of him, almost nearly pushing him away, and she darts across the street directly to
And
Fleur.
I want to say, the second you said that, god as that last thing you said was the god as there's this street lamp that had been turned off, and just as you said that, it kind of flickers to life, and just like in a good old noir movie, this beam of light comes straight down on top of where Fleur is standing, cutting right through the dark, and you see Fleur, and you start running towards her, and you see that next to her is a little Fleur.
Smaller, tiny Fleur.
Tiny. Fleurette.
Fleurette!
Fleur is running towards you, yep.
Before Odette had started to move, Fleur would have sort of instinctively, once she felt that crash of emotion, that crash of the connection, she would have taken a step as though she was going to start to move towards Odette, and then sort of just remembered herself. And then once she sees Odette running towards her, her feet are sort of just going to move on their own, and she's going to meet you in the middle.
I want it known that Odette is running at a full sprint, like just dead sprinting to you, in all seriousness, and with her arms open, whether yours are or not. She is going to completely draw you in the tightest and squeeziest of embraces.
I think it would be in the same way that so many years ago, Fleur would always have her arms open for you in like your greatest time of need, whenever you needed, that connection, that human connection. She would basically catch you as you ran into her.
And as that is happening in the middle of the street, a little bit further down the street on their way to the gallery, Anton and Agravain slipping through the shadows, looking for the back door into the prince's haven, not haven, but Elysium. Anton probably doesn't notice, but you, Agravain, hundreds of years of just being tuned to things happening, your perception being super sharp, you look up just in time to not only see a befuddled older gentleman on the side of the street, kind of seeing his world crumble before his eyes. Not only Odette, who you knew was in town, I don't know to which degree the two of you had, met and hung out, but also Fleur, whom you haven't seen, at least in person, for several hundred years. And just beyond Fleur, the single most beautiful, most precious, most innocent looking young woman you've ever seen. So much so, in fact, that it offends you to your very core to see such pretty innocence standing at the mouth of that dirty, filthy alley. It is probably going on 11 o'clock at night. You are in the middle of the street, Fleur and Odette, having run towards each other and clasped each other, holding each other for the first time in hundreds of years. From the shadows with beady little eyes, Agravain watches. Agravain, do you signal to Anton, who seems to be oblivious to this and kind of focused on, going on to his schemes?
Yeah, I do. I'm gonna place my hand on his shoulder. I assume we're walking side by side, and point to the two. And as I do so, I'm going to cloak us both in the shadows.
Oh. Anton, you look in the direction that Agravain is pointing, and you see the reunion taking place in the middle of the street.
Oh, sweet.
Touching.
And with those deeply romantic remarks, Fleur and Odette, what's happening?
Fleur is going to, after several moments of holding Odette, all of a sudden sort of hold her back away from her to just almost like she's suddenly thinking that this might be an illusion. And she's just going to sort of grab your face and like stretch it a little bit.
Like actually stretching it or like just stretching it?
Oh, just normal stretching.
Okay.
It's
good.
just the normal stretching.
Good, because, you know,
That would not be good.
that would not be very good.
Oh, you're real.
In a hiss, Odette, under her breath, in medieval French, would say to Fleur, not in English.
Fleur will switch to French. What are you doing here? I mean, I knew you were here, but...
You knew I was here?
Well, of course. And Fleur is going to take out the little ad, the little flyer that had been tucked in the pocket of her coat.
Nervously, Odette sort of gives a shrug and says, I live here. I live in Chicago, and I work here.
You're doing good for yourself? You're okay?
Extremely well. In fact, I've never been better. In fact, Chicago and really this decade has been my best.
Oh, Dad, is everything okay?
An old friend, darling.
Oh, okay. Maybe she knows the way.
Maybe.
Fleur's going to sort of glance over Odette's shoulder, taking like stock of the man, before turning back to Odette. Who's that?
Henry. My...
Mortal?
Yes. Thus the French. He's been...
Does he know?
No. No idea. He's been kind to me, though. He's been quite good.
I imagine that Fleur feels something like bubbling up inside of her. And it's sort of starting to overtake the joy that she had felt at seeing Odette for the first time. And it's something that she's never felt before. It would be jealousy. She's jealous. And she doesn't quite know how to respond to that, because it's something that she's never really felt before, not in her really mortal life, nor in her kindred life. And as she's talking to Odette, Odette would probably notice Fleur kind of glancing over her shoulder, just like glare at the man. Well, we were making our way to the gallery, and I'm going to gesture to Elodie.
Odette's gonna sort of pause and narrow her eyes and say, I'm not entirely sure that is the best place for me to bring my betrothed.
Fleur will step away from Odette.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second here at this moment? Just since Agravanda and Anton are sort of in the scene also, I just want to get an idea of what the two of you are doing. Are you doing anything? Are you just watching, or are you doing anything? I just want to give you a chance to sort of react to what's going on, but if you're just watching, that's cool too, but just to see what you want to...
I'm definitely watching. Can I hear them from where I'm at?
You can do a perception check along with... let's say investigation.
Okay.
Or actually, or
Wow,
alertness if you want.
So many fucking dice.
That they would both be the same.
Okay.
What's my success I'm looking for?
I would say probably 6s and up.
I got 7.
Right. So I would say you're either hearing what they're saying or reading their lips or just getting the vibe off. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are a 6th generation, several centuries old vampire. You're picking up what they're dropping without too much of
Yeah,
a
I
problem.
imagine at this point I've become very well versed in lip reading.
Yeah.
With my skill set.
You do know
yeah,
they're switching to French and things of that nature. You speak French, of course.
Yep.
Being French.
While they're conversing, I'm listening to them. I'm watching them, but my attention keeps getting drawn to Fleur's sweet little niece and how much she looks like the Fleur that I once knew. And I kind of look over to Anton and I offer a devious little smirk to him and say, I do wish to have a bit of fun before we go about on our way. And his little rat companion, who basically lives on his person at this point, kind of rustles out of his robes and comes up to his shoulder, and you see Agravain communicating with this rat in his own little weird way, and he's giving him little scratches on his head and just kind of sends him off towards the 3. And this rat is fucking booking it, and he's like a big ass, like scary looking, some rat you would see crawling out of a sewer of New York.
The ghoul rat.
And the rat that's like carrying the piece of pizza down the subway, and he's booking it, and he makes a beeline straight to Fleur's niece, and he's gonna run up her body and attempt to bite her pretty little face.
Okay, so as the two of you, Odette and Fleur, are kind of talking, you turn around to say it's my niece, and she sees you kind of gesturing to her, so she takes this as an invitation to show up, and with a very look of happiness on her face. And Odette, you can't help but notice how much she looks like the way Fleur used to look back in the day. Fleur has changed quite a bit, I would say. You would definitely know that. She starts running towards you. And I will say that just sort of at the last minute, you see this little shadow that's kind of moving behind her and sort of leaps up at her. I'm going to say, Creep, go ahead. I'm going to give her a chance to react, but go ahead and make a... no. I'm going to say a... intelligence plus animal can roll.
Okay.
Just to see how well trained this rat is and so on and so forth. I'll give you a target of 5, and I will roll her paltry little defenses.
That's 3 successes for me.
Okay, so it's actually a tie, but I give ties to attacker. So the lot of you see at this sort of at the same time, this rat starts to climb up her, and I always want to say Zil, but it's what's your niece's name?
Elodie.
Elodie. I always want to say Zil, which is it's just different. The letters just scramble different. So Elodie, at the last minute, is kind of coming towards you, and she kind of noticed something. She looks down and she lets out this sharp cry, and you see this rat jump up and just take a huge bite. And earlier, Creep said, the rat that's running away with the piece of pizza. This is a ghoul rat. It's the rat that runs away with the pizza and probably the delivery guy. So it jumps up and takes this bite right out of her, and not only does it bite, but it rips out flesh along the way, and you can see this long strand of red wet flesh that just kind of rips off as this rat kind of tumbles through the air and hits the ground and sort of runs off with its prize. And Ellie's like, ah, and she kind of hits the ground on one knee and is holding her hand up to her face. What do you want to do?
Floor's going to rush up to her and sort of cover her wound.
Ah,
Are you all right? What was that?
I don't know, like a dog? What? And like blood is coming down. At this point, I would like Odette and Fleur. Fleur, you've just fed, so we'll see you right. But Odette, give me 2d10s to see how much blood you actually have.
Okay. One moment. I'm rolling.
Roll.
6 total.
Roll. 6. Wow. So you're pretty hungry.
Uh-oh.
You are like you were. Henry was looking for the place, and you were like, "If you don't get me something to eat soon, I'm gonna eat you." Like he was, you're pretty hungry. Give me a self-control roll. Now, you can either give me the self-control roll, or you can spend a willpower point to automatically, or you can spend one of the advantages that you have to automatically keep control of yourself.
Yes, I would like to use one of those advantages, please and thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. So the second you see the blood and the smell of it hits you, and it's kindred blood, and you have committed diablerie before, that thing is etched in your soul. And for one split second, all you saw was your mouth wrapping around that young woman's neck and just draining all the blood out of her. And just one split second, and then you kind of clamp down on it right away. If anyone was looking at you closely, they would have definitely seen your eyes and your mouth kind of reacted, but you kind of clamped down on it. So Fleur, you're there, and she's like, and you can see that she's focusing, trying to heal it. It's not aggravated damage, so it's starting to sort of close up. She's like, what the? Why would it attack me like that? And Henry comes running over, and he comes to you, Odette. And he's like, oh, dear God, was that a rat? I've never seen a rat so big in my life. Do you think she's all right? Should I go to her?
Immediately, Odette's going to put her hand on Henry's forehead. Oh, my darling, you're breaking out into a horrible fever.
I am? I feel fine?
Obviously not. You just saw a small, tiny normal rat and thinking that it's just so huge, and clearly you're feverish, my dear.
All right, that's possible. We should help this girl. And he starts sort of moving towards.
Yes, I think she's okay, and she's sort of glancing over to see where she is on the healing process.
You can see, both of you and everyone watching, basically, that like it's getting there. Like she's kind of almost complete. And Fleur, I would say you probably get the idea that she, considering that there's a mortal nearby and all that, you might actually think of telling her to not heal it completely, so that at least it looks like a little bit of a wound, so that you can pass it off as it wasn't as bad as we thought, kind of thing.
Much smaller rat, tiny little rat bite.
Would I be able to mesmerize Henry?
Yeah, certainly. Once he, he gets to you, or you go to him and talk to him, you can definitely.
I'm going to turn back to him. There's a very cold look in my eyes, and I'm going to play off of what Odette was saying. Yes, sir. You look ill. Perhaps you should go home.
Go ahead and give me a manipulation plus subterfuge. Now, do you want to use your dominate to control him into doing this? By the way, that's something you can do.
Would he know that I dominated him?
You have forgetful mind, so you could not. You could basically with 2 attempts
No, I
give him
think
a command and then erase that from his mind.
considering the affection that Odette seems to hold for this man, I'm going to be a bit more gentle with it
Okay.
than I would otherwise. So, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 successes.
All right. So you turn around. You turn on that full fleur charm. You know, like the whole razzle dazzle, the show, and you see something strange go on in his face. You see in a moment almost like that look that you've come to recognize of like almost that instant kind of like, you know, flash of sudden love. Like that's kind of like how people react to that. Something like they see and it's like, oh, you know, kind of thing. You see that, but it's immediately kind of transformed, and you can see that he's like, you can read it in his mind. He's like, oh, you're a harlot, aren't you? You know, and you've never really gotten that response before from someone that you've used this on. But you can tell that there is still that wanting to please you, that you know that you did use your entrancement, so there is that wanting to please you, that wanting to do what you want kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a little bit of that self-loathing for wanting to do that. You get the sense that this guy, you know, he's got Jesus in his heart also. Like he's like, you're really dirty and you're making me think dirty things and you're really bad for doing it, but I can't help myself, you know, sort of thing. You can really tell that this guy's like, he's not faking his piousness. He's the real deal. But still, he's like, yes. Well, if you're all right, then yes, I'll absolutely. I'm sorry to have disturbed you. I'm very sorry, and he sort of turns around and will go back towards Odette. What are Agravain and Anton doing during all this?
I would imagine there is just an immeasurable amount of glee in Agravain's eyes right now, watching this very wide-eyed, watching the whole kerfuffle take place. And he's finally, once things begin to settle down, he's gonna look to Anton and whisper to him, should we be moving on then?
Anton will look back almost with like that proud, good job look. Give you a quite a smirk. Yes, maybe we should continue our way.
Do you keep the obfuscate on as you depart?
Yes.
Okay. Odette, you see Henry coming back towards you. I think the girl's all right. The wound doesn't look as bad as I thought. Perhaps we should leave them be. What do you think, darling? Should we? I'm not terribly in the mood for going out anymore, but perhaps we could go back to your apartment and perhaps read a few psalms before I depart tonight and go back home and leave these. And he says the word with a hint of you know what in it. These women to their own affairs, and you can tell that in his mind, like these are 2 prostitutes. Like that's where his mind went with all that, and he's just like,
Oh no, Henry. This is a dear old friend of mine.
oh, they seem to be popping out of the woodwork tonight.
They just must have just come to town recently. I wonder if they're maybe lost here in Chicago. I have not seen her in quite some time, but my darling, you are quite under the weather. Why don't you go back to my apartment, rest there, and I will come to see you and tend to you. We can pray together then, once I escort the ladies home.
I wouldn't feel right being in your apartment with you now there and waiting for you so late. If you'll swear to me that you'll be careful and you'll take a cab home tonight, and he's reaching in his thing to pull out some money, I'll go home and perhaps tomorrow we might meet again. Tomorrow I could come by after work and we could, um, well, start fresh, start anew, as if tonight had never happened. What are you saying? He's pulling out like a couple $100 bills and he slides them over.
Would you maybe make tonight up to me by taking me shopping, Henry?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a wonderful idea. Absolutely. Things in white, of course.
Of course. And she takes the money from him very quickly.
You'll take a cab and you'll be careful, right? And he kind of gives a dirty look towards. But it's weird because he's still under the awe, right? The awe power of Florence. So he gives her this dirty look, but at the same time, there's that, man, I would, just fuck the Lord in her, kind of.
That feeling? Wow. Odette she'll lean up and she'll whisper a few, cutesy things in French to him, and Fleur will hear and translate in her head that it means absolutely nothing. But it sounds real nice. And she'll kiss him on the cheek again and sort of linger there for a moment and say, I promise I will be safe. I will take a cab and then you can take me out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Be safe, darling, and he'll take your hand and, kiss it very chastely and sort of with a look over his shoulder and a little bit disturbed, walks off.
She immediately pockets the money, and then as he walks off, she will go back to Fleur.
And Fleur, with him leaving now, your niece will say, can I close this wound now? It's kind of itching.
Fleur will sort of brush a thumb over it. Because does healing like take anything from them to heal it in the moment?
It takes blood.
Would she be able to heal it for her?
Well, you could heal it with your other thing.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, you can do that. No problem. So you run your thumb over it and you just will this wound to sort of close. And she's like,
yeah.
And Odette, as you arrive back towards them, you hear the young woman say, thank you, Mom. That feels much better.
Do you want to go back to the hotel? Are you feeling well?
I'm all right. I was just a little unnerving is all. It felt targeted. I don't know what it was. But never mind. No, I'm fine, Mom. Thank you. I'm sorry. We haven't met properly. And she will extend her hand to you and say, I am Odile. Did I fuck it up again?
Maybe we should just change your name.
Yeah.
To Odile. I like Odile.
I'm actually going to put the images so I can see the name go by. And I'm the French guy of the bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. How about that?
I'm actually waiting for the picture to come around so I can remember.
Oh my god.
Elodie.
I don't even want to give it to him anymore. I want to make him struggle.
It's his little frog brain. He can't help it.
I'm making a note, Elodie.
Elodie.
And it's messed up because I had a student last year who was called Elodie, so the name should be foremost.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm Elodie. Are you Odette?
Odette, being weird and being Odette and awkward, sort of very carefully takes her hand and shakes it. She's a little bit shocked at hearing this young woman refer to Fleur as Mother.
She's speaking
Yeah.
French also, by the way. Just so.
Right.
Fleur will sort of elaborate. This is my niece and child. And you would know that child
Yeah.
as in I sired her.
Yeah. Odette sort of looks between the two of them and gives a little shake and then says, "Yes, I am Odette in the flesh."
I've heard so much about you. It's
Have you?
quite the pleasure to meet you. And she gives you a little, very formal, very old school, back in France in, the 1300s curtsy.
Fleur, realizing that this is going to be an embarrassing moment for her if I'm doing it now too. If Elodie tells Odette about how much she's talked about her in the past, kind of gives her a signal over Odette's shoulder, and then grabs, sort of loops her arm, kind of goes in between the pair and loops her arms with both of the women, and begins to lead them towards where she knows where the gallery would be.
Elodie does not at all acknowledge
No, of course she doesn't.
this, and she's
Typical.
like, Mom often talks about you, and she told me how angelic you absolutely are. And I must say that even with all her talents and all the amazing paintings she's done of you over the years, none of them,
Maybe don't mention all those, please. Thank you.
and she just kind of ignores you, none of them come close to matching the reality. It's very incredible. I
Fleur is
understand why
going to sort of drag them, be like, yes, she's very beautiful. Come on.
And having done her part, she just kind of giggles and.
Odette is sort of shy in this moment. She sort of looks up to Fleur and then to Elodie and says, "Oh, well, I have to say that we are all made in the vision of God and in God's eye. So in a way, we all are a little bit angelic, aren't we?" And as she says that, she sweeps her eyes over to Fleur. "You look different."
Fleur will sort of look conflicted. Her brow sort of furrows. Yes, I've spent quite a long time trying to reverse what Avalon did to me. And the haircut, of course.
I mostly meant the haircut.
Figured.
You're still beautiful.
New decade. New hair.
It suits as well. Like I said, this has been my best decade yet. I'm almost sad to see this is our last year of it.
Well, let's hope the 30s are even kinder to you.
Perhaps with Henry, they will be.
Fleur's going to kind of grimace a little. You could have picked someone younger.
Henry's nice to me. Young men aren't nice. We know that.
And then she's going to kind of grab Odette's left hand to look at the ring. And then she's going to kind of give a little, quaint.
I'm sorry. Is that not up to your standard?
If you were mine, I wouldn't give you something so dismal.
What is it that you're saying there, Fleur? And be careful with your words. It's been quite some time.
I think you're worth more than material objects trying to win your affection.
Like I said, he's nice to me. Chicago can be cruel, the world can be cruel, and for a mortal man, he's cute.
And what will you do when he's gone?
I don't know yet. That's for the future to find out. God decides when he leaves me. And if God decides that he doesn't, then he doesn't.
Fleur's going to continue walking with her arm looped through yours, but you can tell it's sort of gone a little slack.
In response to this, she is going to tighten the grip and lean in close and put her head on your shoulder and sort of nuzzle up there and whisper to you in French. You can't be mad at me now, not after all of this time apart.
I could never be mad at you to begin with. Not then and not now.
And as the two of you, or three of you rather, with Elodie, make your way towards the gallery in the Prince's Elysium, holding each other's hands, feeling the years perhaps for the first time insinuate themselves between you. We'll see how deeply they insinuate themselves, but we will jump ahead a little bit and find Agravain and Anton. You're arriving at the speakeasy that is known as the Gallery. The speakeasy belongs to the prince and is an area of Elysium where the Masquerade is not threatened by the presence of mortals. Of course, it is an Elysium, so only the Keeper of Elysium and the Sheriff and the Prince have any right to do any sort of violence or conflict action or the use of disciplines, etc., etc. And this is enforced very strictly. You arrive going in through down towards where the canals are and coming in through a little really nondescript door in the back, down along a tunnel that is just this carved rock that is covered with this moisture that's constantly there no matter the time of year. You will go up some stairs, and as you do, normally you would expect to hear music. However, tonight, given the events of last night, the St. Valentine's Day massacre and what it portends for the kindred of the city, there is no music. You hear hushed tones, and when you come into the main area of the bar, which is built into what used to be this sort of vaulted cell, almost kind of like an old church maybe or something like that, with this rounded stone ceiling, wooden booths, deep mahogany wooden booths with beautiful green leather cushions sort of lining one wall, a very long bar with a brass rail lining the other one. There are ghouls, of course, that are the prince's ghouls and bound to him, who are serving blood to the kindred here. There are maybe 9-10 kindred here, all elders, not quite as old as you, some a little bit lower on the pole perhaps, but everyone pretty much talking about what's happening. The Primogen and the prince apparently are still behind closed doors discussing what's going to happen. Someone says that Giovanni has been run out of town. Others say that no, he's defiant and won't leave. Some people are saying the prince has called for a Justicar to come in. There's all sorts of rumors flying around. You will notice of most interest to you, perhaps, the sheriff, Blake Lonergan, who is a Brua also like you, Anton, and also involved in the illegal activities in the mortal world. And for you, Agravain, H. Collingsford, the primogen of your clan, sitting as always in a very darkened corner, sort of keeping his own counsel. He has a cat that is always with him, and so you are very careful when you are near him to keep your little friend hidden. His cat has probably killed a couple of your friends in the past, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to make new ones and retrain them. So you keep him away. But he's got this, those furless cats that look really kind of weird. Like he's got one of those. And apparently, rumor is that cat is several hundred years old, and that he found it back a long, long time ago in ancient Egypt, and it's been with him ever since. And when you look at it, it just has that look of like, I met Cain and I kicked his ass kind of thing.
The irony that those cats didn't come around until the 60s.
Yeah. So he's just sort of holding on to this thing and, petting it. As you arrive then in this room, what do you wish to do? There is several people here you could talk to, or you could just grab a corner somewhere and get yourself a cup of blood and wait to see what comes next. What would you like to do?
Question. I know that the primogen wanted to speak with me this evening before. Did he kind of give like a place and a time for that, or just?
Yeah, I just said to come here, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would imagine that Agravain would have a fair amount of trust in Anton at this point, based on what they've been dealing with together. And he would probably look to Anton and say, perhaps this is where we part our ways for a while. I have someone I need to speak with, as do you.
But no, possibly for the best.
And I believe Agravain would make his way over to the Nosferatu primogen.
As you approach H. Collingsford table, you're reminded of how little you know of them. It's not even clear if they're male or female, or constantly just shrouded in this big, baggy sort of, ancient-looking, just like a big, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like this garment. It's literally like you can place it in a time or place or give it some sort of name. It's just this big tarp, basically, that Collingsford wears. And he wears a mask that is very intricately carved. And this one you can place. You saw similar masks when you were human back in the day in Constantinople. And they were favored by those who had the plague, or the plague back, not the plague, sorry, leprosy back then, to hide their features. And it's this kind of intricately carved face of not a man, not a woman. It's just very, very difficult to tell anything from. And the voice is the same thing. And as you approach, they'll say, friend Agravain, such a pleasure to see you again. I was despairing to find any sort of worthwhile company among this lot. Will you have a seat?
Agravain bows his head to the primogen and he quietly takes a seat. Is there a place where he can sit across from him? Is he in like a booth? What's his...
He's like in a corner thing, so there's like a corner or whatever, so you could sort of kind of sit perpendicular to him and kind of be across from him. What business have you been up to tonight? It is quite late.
I was told to come and see you. I had a little dinner and made my way over.
Satisfying, was it?
Not in the way that I wanted it to be.
Indeed, I find that the more nights pass, the more I find the vitae provided by those little sheep that run outside to be less and less satisfying, but we make do with what we must. Tell me.
Why do you call me here?
Well, I'm sure you've gotten wind of the recent events. The prince is about to announce that he has already placed a call into a friend of his, Tremere Justicar, and that a Archon is on its way here to handle the matter. I believe they will force the Giovanni to leave the city. If he does so, he will be permitted to do so with his life, but must leave all his resources behind. And if he does not, well, que sera, sera. I was a little concerned about you. I know you're friends with, and he kind of just looks up towards where Anton is. Is he still only a triple agent turncoat now, or is he gravitated to being a quadruple agent at this point? I'm starting to lose count of how many people he serves and betrays.
Anton does as Anton wishes. He is an old friend.
You should be careful that old friends don't turn into albatrosses.
Wouldn't we hate for that to happen?
There will be a certain reckoning to have at this point. Any sort of major conflict arising in the organized crime areas of the city would not be good. Not just because the prince controls a good portion of it. He will wish to stamp down on it pretty hard, and I have a feeling that the broom he will use to sweep the floor will be very broad and very indiscriminate. It is very possible that some of the more fringe players might be swept up like so many dust bunnies off into the garbage.
And what makes you worry about me?
Well, I worry. You're one of mine, after all. And, well, some links, some bonds are perhaps more difficult than others to let go of. But I will let you decide what is best for you in this particular matter. I do hope that you will make a sensible decision when it comes to the things you have hidden in your basement. They are a smoking gun. Never good to be the one holding the smoking gun when the
Tell me
reckoning
what that
comes.
decision would be. What good decision could I make that would please you, Primogen?
Oh, I don't need you to please me. Well, I'm barely older than you are. You could be the primogen of this town if you wanted, easily enough. I see you as more of an equal than anything else, and perhaps the only one who, to a certain degree, perhaps understands me well in this place. I would hate to lose you. But I would never want to tell you what to do. I will simply call upon your sagaciousness and wisdom, hard-earned after these long years, to Perhaps listen to the angel's voice on your shoulder telling you that self-preservation is not always a coward's way.
This is what you brought me here for.
Well, that and what's about to happen. And
Gonna glance around the room. Do I notice anything out of the usual?
you do notice that there's a bit of a hubbub, a little bit of an energy that's going on. Like some more of the Primogen have come out of the meeting now and are talking to their whips and their people. You do notice that Fleur and Odette and the little girl, well, not a little girl, she's not a girl, she's a woman, she's just a young woman, have arrived and are sort of, well, we'll see what they're doing in a second. I'll go to them and they can tell me what they're doing. I'm not going to decide for them. But as you look across, you will see Anton. Anton, what is Anton doing? Where did you go after you separated from Agravain?
Anton would begin looking for the sheriff, Blake.
You find him. He's off with a couple other Brujas talking. He looks like he's sort of giving orders in some directions.
I just kind of walk up and wait for him to finish his instructions, and then
the instructions he's giving, you kind of get the sense that he's basically telling everyone to get ready. It's going to get ugly. Basically, it looks like it's going to be war or something to that effect. And I want to say on the human level, like it's mostly like marshaling the human forces of law enforcement and crime. We're not talking vampires going to war with vampires here. So you approach and you say that. He looks over. He's like, "Where the fuck you been all night? Fucking city's about to blow up, and you're fucking gallivanting around."
Had some things to take care of.
Well, I hope those things come with a little present for me. Kind of information you getting from the other side. You are still connected to the Boundary Clan, right? You still fucking get information for me from them?
Absolutely. I may have come across something more than information.
What would that be?
A small stash.
Small stash, like a tiny mustache? What? Talk to me.
No. A large amount of alcohol, some firearms, feelings.
And who's missing those? I guess is the question I should be asking.
The Border Clan is missing those.
Are they now?
They are.
And I should care because
They
you
will
get
be
a sense.
delivered
So I just want to kind of indicate to you that he's kind of, when two people are talking, but no one wants to be the first one to incriminate themselves before the other one kind of does. That's kind of like the feeling you're getting. Like he's kind of, picking up what you're dropping, but he doesn't want to assume that maybe you're not dropping that and kind of, commit himself. So he's kind of like,
It's a pretty large sum of things that one could do whatever one wanted to with.
I'm going to ask you again, Anton, and you're going to have to talk to me like I'm 5 here, but what are you getting at? What is it that you think you have, and why is it that you think I should care about it? And might I warn you, let's be careful what we say in here.
I have no need to be careful. Before the prince, And Anton's gonna kind of look around and just kind of take in his surroundings.
You're currently kind of isolated a little bit. You can tell that there's stuff happening. You can see that Agravain's kind of looking at you from across the way. You can see that Odette and Fleur have come in. You can tell something's about to happen. Like there's that feeling in the air. The Primogen have come out of the meeting with the prince, and there's a lot of energy and kind of talk and whatnot. And it definitely feels like something's about to happen.
I believe these were intercepted goods meant for payment from the Boundary Clan. I believe they may have had more to do with last night's situation.
Do we have Giovanni fingerprints and Boundary Clan fingerprints in the same place?
It does appear as such.
You like to stir shit up, don't you?
I like to do my job.
He kind of looks around, takes in the surroundings too. We'll meet tomorrow, right after dusk. The old firehouse. We'll be able to talk more comfortably there. Is your ugly friend there involved?
And Anton will kind of turn and look towards Agravain. A very old friend of mine. They will not have any issue.
You gotta watch out for the sewer rats, man. At the end of the day, all they really care about is whatever information they can get out of you. I hope you have a good grasp on what kind of relationship you got with this feller.
I believe I have a very good grasp. And Anton will say that almost pointedly.
And as Anton is saying that very pointedly, Fleur and Odette and Elodie, you have walked into this place and immediately you feel the energy that's going on. There's like that calm before the storm kind of feeling. You get the feeling that something pretty important's about to happen. You can spot Agravain in one corner, and Anton also. Fleur, it's the first time you see the two of them. You recognize Anton right away. Agravain, it probably takes a couple of seconds longer, but you know, you do kind of suss him out.
Would Odette have had seen Agravain and Anton in Chicago at all? Unless they all had come here on a regular basis, I would imagine. But
You
even
definitely
that,
wouldn't have seen Agravain.
Agravain probably has seen me. Just kidding.
Well, so I would say you probably haven't seen Agravain, but you would know he's in town because he's an elder,
Yeah.
so it would be known. Anton
Yeah.
has probably been more kind of under the radar,
Okay.
but you may not have run into them like it's not like Kindred just hang around every weekend because they got nothing better to do.
Yeah. So, well, in that case, then at the sight of the two of them, and really her last memories being so violent with them, despite helping each other, she's gonna cling a little closer to Fleur. She's got a little trauma, specifically with Anton. But as they enter, Odette's just gonna sort of stand still, holding onto Fleur, staring between the two of them.
Fleur's going to sort of turn to Elodie in a hushed breath. Stay away from those two.
Ellie's like super wide-eyed, kind of like just looking around. Away from whom, Mom?
The hooded one and the big one over there.
So a couple things happen here. As you say that, she kind of looks over, and Agravain, you look over at the same time, and you lock eyes with Elodie just kind of at the same time, and you see Fleur, in your niece this immediate intrigue, look of intrigue and fascination at what she's seeing. Agravain, you don't miss it either. You can see it right away in this this young woman's face that she's locked onto you, and you know there's something sort of going on. At the same time, Odette, as you're feeling a little bit of that trauma come back, as you're feeling a little bit of that fear kind of take over, you cling on to Fleur a little bit. You hear the voice again, the voice of Aveline, Fleur's sire, who a lot of you killed, in 1381, and well, committed diablerie upon, and so now you hear her voice once in a while in your head. And you hear her say, "It's too late, Odette. You can't stop what's coming now. Remember, it was always the most pious ones that burned first." As you hear that, the Keeper of Elysium will come out and tap a rod that he's got this metal rod, tap it 3 times to call attention to himself. And he will, give me just 1 second. I said him, but it's a woman. That's why I wanted to go double check. The Keeper of Elysium is a Ventru named Sahura. She is relatively new to the city, and as opposed to what you might have expected of a Ventru, is rumored to have helped Campbell depose the former Ventru prince, and so she's kind of seen as a little bit of a turncoat by the Ventru who lost control of the city when Campbell came in. So she taps this rod that she has and calls attention, and she says, "Good people of Chicago, I bring word to you from Prince Campbell. The prince is currently still in discussion with some of the elders, but he has reached a decision. First, know that the actions that took place last night are considered a breach of Elysium, an attack upon the rights of the prince. The Giovanni, known as Federico Giovanni, has been marked anathema and will be forced to leave the city. The Prince Campbell, in his wisdom, has called upon an old friend of his, the Tremere Archon, Reyna Lindworm, who has dispatched one of her Archons to deal with the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Archon, Aveline de Lyon of Clan Toreador, sweeping into the room, looking exactly as she did on that night so long ago when you killed her and committed diablerie upon her. Aveline comes sweeping into the room. She is as you remember her, but more perfect, having now had centuries to work her flesh-crafting magic on herself. She's more striking than ever, with a beauty that truly transcends the boundaries of time. Raven black hair cascades like a waterfall of silk down her back, and porcelain skin as pale as moonlight. She appears as if she is a work of art brought to life. Her features are striking: high cheekbones, perfectly sculpted nose and lips that bear the trace of a sardonic smile, hinting at hidden well of wit and intelligence. She possesses an elegance that is both captivating and formidable. But it's in her eyes that Aveline's true power lies. Her eyes are like twin pools of molten obsidian, glittering with an intensity that borders on anger. They seem to hold the secrets of the ages, windows into a soul that has seen both the heights of passion and the depths of despair. These eyes can pierce through the masks and facades that so often shroud the kindred, laying bare the vulnerabilities and truths that others like to conceal. She is dressed simply in a black wrap that resembles nothing so much as a death shroud. Several rings adorn her hand, but she is otherwise unadorned. She doesn't need artifice. One who returns dustily from the dead for a second time has no need of adornments beyond the pain and anger in her eyes. She steps forward. She scans the room. Her eyes don't stop or hesitate on any of you. She takes in everyone in the Elysium. I have been given, she says in that voice you know so well, accented. I have been given several names. Those of you who may have in some form or another connections to this matter. Let me be clear. The Giovanni known as Federico Giovanni is as of this moment declared anathema, and starting 1 hour from now will no longer be protected by the tradition of Elysium. If at that point he is still in Chicago, he is to be hunted until he is killed or leaves the city. He will not be pursued beyond the city limits, as his crimes pertain to the domain of Chicago and not the Camarilla as a whole. Amaranth, diablerie, is not permitted and will be punished by death. As we all know, and I'm sure agree, and at this moment her eyes fall on Fleur, locking with yours, Fleur, and you know she sees you, and you know she knows you, and you know she hates the ever-living fuck out of you. Diablerie, the eating of one's elder soul, is the most monstrous of crimes, and never to be pardoned or forgiven. And on that note, my friends, we will end tonight's episode of
Jesus
Auto
fucking
da Fe.
Christ.
We're in danger.
God damn it, Blake.
I need an adult. I need an adult right now.
I'm scared.
I just one clarifying question. You said De Leon for her last name, right?
That's exactly what I
Yep.
said.
Okay.
Aveline de Leon.
Okay.
Fuck.